You know what bothered me for the longest time in the shop? I could not cut a straight line by hand to save my life. I mean, I could get close. I could sneak up on a line with a bench plane after the fact. But the actual saw cut itself always had a little wander to it, a little drift right at the end, or a rough start that chewed up the edge. I blamed my hands. I blamed my eyes. I even blamed the wood a couple of times, which is never a good sign. Then, about 8 years ago, I picked up a Japanese pull saw for the first time. A friend of mine who had spent some time in Kyoto brought one back and handed it to me like it was no big deal. I made one cut with that saw, and I just stood there staring at the kerf. It was thin, it was clean, and it was dead straight. I had been fighting my saw for 20 years, and it turned out the saw was fighting me right back. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what makes Japanese saws different and why the traditional techniques behind them produce cuts that most Western hand saws simply cannot match without a lot more effort. We are going to cover 5 methods from the basic physics of the pull stroke all the way to how these craftsmen read the grain before the saw even touches the wood. And stick around to the end because I am going to show you a marking technique I learned that virtually guarantees your saw follows the line every single time. Let me start with some context first. Japanese pull saws are not some recent invention or a modern marketing gimmick. They are the product of centuries of refinement by craftsmen who built everything from tea houses to massive temple complexes entirely with hand tools. No table saws, no miter saws, no band saws, just hand-forged blades and an enormous amount of skill passed down from master to apprentice. The tradition I am drawing from here goes back to what the Japanese call miyadaiku, which are the temple and shrine carpenters. These were elite craftsmen, and some family lineages go back over 1,000 years. The Nishioka family, for example, maintained the temples at Horyuji, which is one of the oldest wooden structures on Earth, built in the 7th century. When those temples needed restoration in the 1900s, the Nishioka family was still there, still using hand tools, still cutting joints that fit so precisely you could not slide a piece of paper into the seam. Now, here is what matters for us. These craftsmen did not develop the pull saw because they thought it looked interesting. They developed it because they were working with Japanese hinoki cypress and Japanese cedar, woods that are relatively soft and have a beautiful straight grain, but damage easily if you are aggressive with them. They needed a saw that could cut cleanly without bruising the fibers around the kerf, and they needed cuts that were accurate enough to produce joints that held together without nails or glue, sometimes for centuries. The guiding idea behind all Japanese sawing technique is this: you do not force the cut. You allow the blade to do the work, and your job is simply to keep it aligned. That sounds like something you would read on a motivational poster, but once you understand the physics behind it, you realize it is the most practical cutting advice anyone has ever given. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing I learned, and honestly the thing that changed everything for me, is the fundamental difference between pushing a saw and pulling a saw. With a traditional Western hand saw, you cut on the push stroke. That means you are pushing a thin steel blade away from your body and asking it to stay rigid while it bites into the wood. The problem is that when you push a thin piece of steel, it wants to buckle. It wants to flex. And the harder you push, the more it flexes. So Western saw makers compensate by making the blade thicker and stiffer, or by adding a brass or steel spine along the back, like you see on a tenon saw or a dovetail saw. That works, but now you have a thicker blade, which means a wider kerf, which means more material wasted and more room for the cut to drift. Japanese saws cut on the pull stroke. When you pull a thin piece of steel toward your body, it goes into tension. Think of it like a piece of string. You cannot push a string in a straight line, but you can pull it perfectly straight every time. That is exactly what is happening with a pull saw. The blade is in tension throughout the cutting stroke, which means it naturally tracks straight. You do not have to muscle it. You do not have to fight it. The physics are doing the work for you. When I finally understood that, I felt like I had been arm wrestling my Western saws for 2 decades for no reason. Now, the second thing that amazed me was the blade itself. Because Japanese pull saws operate in tension, the blade can be remarkably thin. A typical Western dovetail saw has a blade thickness of about 20/1000ths of an inch. A good dozuki, which is the Japanese backsaw equivalent, runs about 12 to 15/1000ths of an inch. Some high-end Japanese saws go as thin as 10/1000ths. That might not sound like much of a difference, but when you are cutting joinery, that difference is enormous. A thinner blade means a thinner kerf. A thinner kerf means less wood removed, which means your saw has less material to push through and less opportunity to wander offline. It also means the cut surfaces are cleaner. There is less fiber tear out on either side of the kerf because the blade is disturbing less material as it passes through. The first time I cut a tenon cheek with a dozuki and held it up to the light, the surface was so smooth it looked like it had been planed. With my Western tenon saw, that same cut always needed a pass or two with a shoulder plane to clean it up. With the Japanese saw, it was ready to glue right off the blade. By the way, if you are enjoying learning about these ancient methods, I put together something I think you will really appreciate. It is called Kenji's Workshop, and it is a collection of 100 ancient Eastern woodworking secrets for the modern craftsman. Techniques like the ones we are covering today, and a whole lot more. You can grab your copy by scanning the QR code on screen or just use the first link in the description. All right, let us keep going. The third method is one that took me the longest to appreciate, and honestly, it is the one that separates someone who owns a Japanese saw from someone who actually knows how to use one. It is body position and alignment. When I watched videos of Japanese craftsmen sawing, the first thing I noticed was how still their upper body was. Their arms were not doing much at all. The power and the control were coming from their core and their legs. Traditional Japanese woodworkers often work seated on the floor or kneeling beside a low beam. The workpiece is held by their body weight or by simple wooden clamps, and the saw stroke comes from a gentle rocking motion of the torso, not from pumping the arms back and forth. Now, most of us are not going to sit on the shop floor. I get that, but the principle translates directly to standing at a Western height workbench. Here is what I changed. Instead of gripping the saw handle tightly and driving the cut with my arm, I hold the handle lightly, almost like I am shaking someone's hand, and I let my shoulder and torso guide the stroke. My elbow stays close to my side, my wrist stays neutral, and I stand so that my forearm, the saw blade, and the cut line are all in the same plane. When I look straight down, I can see the back of the blade perfectly aligned with my pencil line. That alignment is everything. If your body is twisted even 5 degrees off from the cut line, you will unconsciously steer the saw and the cut will drift. Japanese craftsmen understand this intuitively because they train for years under a master who corrects their posture before correcting their technique. The posture comes first, the straight cut follows. The fourth method is how Japanese woodworkers start a cut, and this was a revelation for me. Most of us were taught to start a handsaw cut by placing the blade on the line and making a few short, gentle push strokes to establish a groove. With a Western saw, that works reasonably well because the thick blade has enough rigidity to stay put during those initial strokes. But with a thin Japanese blade, if you just plop it on the wood and start pulling, it can skip and scratch across the surface before it bites in. Here is how traditional Japanese sawyers handle it. They use their thumb as a guide fence. You place the saw blade right on the cut line, then press the flat of the blade gently against the thumbnail of your opposite hand. Your thumb acts as a physical reference that keeps the blade exactly on the line for the first 2 or 3 strokes. Those initial strokes are incredibly light. You are barely touching the wood. You are just letting the teeth score a shallow groove, maybe 1/32 of an inch deep. Once that groove is established, you lift your thumb away and let the groove guide the blade for the rest of the cut. I practiced this for about 10 minutes the first time I tried it, and I have not started a cut any other way since. It is so simple and so reliable that I genuinely do not understand why it is not taught in every beginner woodworking class in the country. The fifth method is something that connects back to that broader Japanese philosophy of reading the wood before you work it. Before a Japanese craftsman makes a cut, he looks at the grain direction and the growth ring orientation of the board. This is not just about preventing tear-out during planing, it affects sawing too. When you cut across the grain, a pull saw with cross-cut teeth slices the fibers cleanly, and the grain direction matters less. But when you are ripping along the grain or cutting at an angle, like a tenon cheek, the grain can steer your blade. If the grain angles to the left, your saw will want to follow it to the left. Japanese craftsmen account for this by orienting the workpiece so the grain runs parallel to the intended cut whenever possible. If they cannot reorient the piece, they adjust their cutting pressure. On the side where the grain is pulling the blade away from the line, they apply a tiny bit more pressure with their index finger on that side of the handle. It is an incredibly subtle adjustment, almost imperceptible if you are watching, but it keeps the cut tracking true. I started paying attention to this about 3 years ago, and it eliminated the mysterious drift I used to get on long rip cuts. The wood was telling me where it wanted the saw to go, and I was finally listening. Let me share some patterns I have noticed over the years, things I used to do myself that this tradition handles completely differently. No judgment. Here, I did all of these for longer than I care to admit. The first pattern is gripping the saw too tightly. Most of us squeeze the handle like we are trying to choke it. A tight grip tenses up your forearm and wrist, which kills your ability to make fine corrections mid-stroke. Japanese technique calls for a relaxed grip, and once I loosened my hand, my cuts got straighter almost immediately. The second pattern is using too much downward pressure. We tend to think that pressing the saw into the wood makes it cut faster. It does, slightly, but it also increases friction, generates heat, and causes the blade to bind and wander. Japanese saws are designed to cut with almost no downward pressure. The weight of the saw itself is nearly enough. When I stopped pressing down and just let the teeth do their job, the saw tracked straighter, and the blade lasted longer between sharpenings. The third pattern is ignoring body alignment. I used to stand wherever was convenient and just reach for the cut. My body was often twisted relative to the cut line, and I was compensating with my wrist without even realizing it. Once I started squaring my body to the cut the way Japanese craftsmen do, the improvement was dramatic. It felt like someone had upgraded my hands. The fourth pattern is never practicing on scrap. Japanese apprentices spend months just making cuts in scrap wood before they touch a real project. Most of us grab the saw and go straight to the workpiece. Spending even 15 minutes cutting practice lines on a piece of pine before starting your project will warm up your muscles, settle your nerves, and remind your hands what a good stroke feels like. I do this every single shop session now. The good news is, once you see these patterns for what they are, you can start correcting them one cut at a time. Now for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. This one changed my layout process completely, and I learned it from watching a Japanese furniture maker in a documentary about Kyoto woodworkers. Before he made any saw cut, he would take his marking knife and score a deep line on the waist side of his layout line, not a light scratch. A real score, maybe 1/16 of an inch deep, made with 2 or 3 firm passes of a sharp marking knife. Then he placed his saw blade directly into that scored groove. The groove acted as a physical track for the saw teeth, and the blade dropped right into it and followed it perfectly from the very first stroke. There was zero wander, zero guesswork. The knife line did all the alignment work before the saw ever touched the wood. I started doing this on every crosscut and every tenon shoulder, and my accuracy improved so much that I actually stopped using a miter box for square crosscuts. The knife line and a good dozuki were more accurate than the miter box ever was. The key is to make sure you are scoring on the waist side, so the knife wall supports the saw teeth on the good side of the line. Use a steel ruler or a small square as your knife guide. Score 2 or 3 passes until you have a definite groove, and then let the saw fall into it. It takes about 10 extra seconds per cut, and it is worth every one of them. One more thing before I let you go. I spent a long time gathering the best ancient Eastern woodworking methods I have come across, and I put them all into a book called Kenji's Workshop. 100 techniques that most modern woodworkers have never seen, with step-by-step photos and clear explanations you can actually follow in your shop. Scan the QR code on screen right now, or grab it from the first link in the description. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one.